go. My clock must have been behind over here. Sorry. Whoa, what's happening? Here we are. We did it.
What up?
You guys excited? You guys happy? How are you?
Yeah. Are
Doing
you?
good.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I'm very happy. Got into another rabbit hole thinking I was gonna cover some more topics, kind of lightly glaze over some like cool weapons or something, but it's got 22 slides all dedicated to one thing. Cause it goes deep, homeboy.
It goes deep.
Yeah, what's going on with
Indeed,
you
it
guys?
does.
So, welcome to Rising from the Ashes Sunday Slow Burn. By the way, proper introduction. How do we do these again? I can't remember. It's been so long.
I don't know, man. How do we do it? Hello.
Pure magic.
Welcome to the Rising from the Ashes
Rising.
Sunday Slow Burn. I'm Daddy Knocking Dan.
What up? I'm the homie Romy. How's it going? Good to be
That's the
here.
homie,
What up,
aka Gator Boy.
Gator Boy? What's happening,
Yep.
y'all? I'm Indy Sage. Welcome to the show.
And Indy. What's up, LC King? It's cracking.
Oh, we got some juice coming out with that, good sir. Coming out this week. It's gonna be some
Yeah.
spice and dice. Very excited. Very excited. I'm curious to see what y'all got to say today because we have a whole list for people that don't know. Okay, we like to plan out here. We be planning, right? we be planning. We be staying and planning, getting the juice, curating the alchemical soup, heating it up, staying lit, staying hot, warming the pot, curry chickpea chicken soup. You know what I'm saying? Nice
Don't
and warm
stop.
on the belly.
You
Never
know how
stop.
we do.
Yo, I had these lentil crepes the other day. They were like really flat like tortillas, but made with like lentils,
Like the earth.
made with like dirt and lentils and dried up bull feces, super clean fiber.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I dipped it into some cosmic cheese, sprinkled it with some of that lavender honey creme fraiche sriracha sauce. Oh god. Anyways, we're going into it, man. We're going into it. So you know, Dan, what
Magical
let
weapons.
let us hit you first, man. Let's go. What you got?
Let us hit you first. What does that mean? Speak
We're
English
gonna
to
hit
me.
you like a pinata. I'm being very cypheric today. I'm very happy. I'm joyous. I went dancing last night. And my hip joints are all loose, so there's a lot of blood flow. Feels great.
All right. Well, you're the one that has like 20 something slides for your one fucking item that you've been doing. So let's get into that. I just have a list of short
Cool.
things, of a bunch of short ones to do. Indy, what you got?
I got about a dozen different magical
Yeah.
weapons, legendary. A brief synopsis
Same
on them. We
here.
can go into some deep dives on them if we want to dig some up and look, see if we can find some more stuff. But I got some general stuff, a lot of swords, a couple spears,
Excellent.
legendary
Ooh.
hammer, some axe.
Roman,
Yeah.
what's your first one? Since you did all these slides, you might as
We're
well
going
use them
into.
before we get to the end and you don't get to.
Oh, that's okay. So let us see here. Let us see. So I just downloaded the PDF just to make sure there's not going to be any lag. So let me do this. And I'm open in viewer. Yeah. So going into some symbolism of the trident throughout history, the trident used by Murdoch and Poseidon, and Shiva,
Murdoch.
and how it kind of like cross translates and what it might mean
Marduk.
symbolically. Yeah, Marduk. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm so sorry that if that happens, don't feel afraid to just
I thought you were talking
blast
about
me
the
in the face.
I thought you were talking about the A team.
Yeah, me too.
Is there a trident on the A team? We should. I don't
No,
know.
but there's a Murdoch.
There's a Murdoch. Maybe there's something deeper there. You know, who knows?
Yeah, there is.
Tea steaks hair. Tea steaks hair.
All connected.
Ice tea steak. What was that guy's name?
Iced tea.
Iced tea.
Mr.
No,
T.
he was in the Mr. T, Mr. Ice Tea Steak. Bubble Tea. Mr. Bubble Tea was his haircut was kind of like a symbolism of the trident, if you ask me. So,
Oh, his
that's all I
mohawk,
gotta say.
Trishula. Trident of Shiva.
Trojan.
He was a true hammer.
Okay, so you're doing the trident.
Like the Mjolnir.
I'm doing the trident. Okay, let's do it. Let me share my screen here,
Let's go.
and we'll get into it. Sorry, I apologize. Just trying to shake off the sillies in the beginning here before we get real juicy and serious. Do. So, can you guys see the screen here?
I see a dick.
Okay. So that's a yes. You do see the screen. This is called Tridents of the Mind, the Trishula Oblongata. It's funny. You guys can laugh. It's okay. Okay, so the Trisula expresses the power which produced the cosmos out of chaos, symbolizing the great mystery of life in its inception, either in its inception or its continuance. It would equally symbolize the mystery of future life. Thus, it became a scepter in the hands of the gods, representing their highest attribution. It's a quote by William Simpson on the symbolism of the trident in antiquity. So Trisula is the Vedic term, or the Hindu term for the trident, and it was used by Shiva. And we have some text here from a great article that I was reading on a Theosophy website, and a lot of this presentation is clips from this article, and then some other links that give some deeper detail into some of these Vedic gods and the crossover into these other cultures. The name Trisula simply means three-pointed, whilst the term trident refers to triple teeth, suggesting great fangs of lightning hurled with a thunderous roar of godly speech. The triplicity of the weapons suggests many triune sets depicting time, space, and condition, past, present, and future, lie in the hands of its only of its effortless user. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are all aligned in its awesome shape, associated with the lightning and the thunderbolt. The trident is the flame of the heavens, which weds fire and water in this world. It is the emblem of all the fiery gods and the potencies of prolific fertility of water. The essential connection with water is more evident with the Greek god Poseidon than with Shiva or Dionysus, but the trident's energy offers many clues to convey the character of its owners and their mutual relationships. Just as Poseidon or Neptune rises from the sea with the trident in hand, so the Maruts of Shiva are called the lightning speared, and the Rig Veda depicts how they rise up out of the ocean to shed fecundating rain in association with fertility and storm gods. There is also a connection between the trident and the axe or hammer. To be struck by any of them would be held in the hands of a god generally connotes an immediate translation of heaven, or perhaps the instantaneous initiation into the highest mystery. In inverted form, this belief lingers on in the common superstition that anyone blasphemizing God would be suddenly struck down by lightning, whilst the notion that lovers at first sight have been struck by thunderbolt harkens back directly to the electric power behind fertility, wherein fire and water merge. So here's Shiva spearing Andaka is his name, and you can see that Andaka has like a couple different forms. There's like the more humanade form, lemonade and human. It's a Ron Palmer of the drink. Anyways,
Arnold Palmer.
So Ron Palmer, just making shit up over here, guys. No worries. So, but you see Shiva here spearing it, and this it's like a serpent, right? So that's kind of like that classic story of what we've talked about on other slow burns of spearing the dragon or spearing the serpent, and this Kundalini energy that continuously pops up in the Vedic and Hindu worlds. I was supposed to have the hyperlink here, but it looks like I don't, which is sad. So fucked up on that. But we'll go into this story of the serpent Andaka and how that also has this maybe more of the shadowy side of the Trisula. While on one end, Shiva is holding the trident, the other end it's actually penetrated into the body of Andaka. So that's kind of symbolic in the sense that they're both grabbing onto the end, one end of this ever spinning, powerful weapon, and they one symbolizes more of like, this light consciousness, and the other one is like the shadowy, deeper depth within us. So Andaka's vow was fulfilled, and thus he remained transfixed upon the lordly trident for 1,000 years. Whilst his body withered into a skeleton, his heart became filled with submission, and a profound adoration of Shiva transformed his tortured soul. Eventually, the Lord restored his body and gave celestial status to this devotee, who became henceforth the Vringi Agana, a Pavarti's recognized son. Like the three eyes of Shiva, his wounds marked his complete conversion and vividly illustrated the trembling of power in an instrument with the familiar function that could be readily realized in a single point. The 3 points of the Trisula suggest that it's an extraordinary weapon. Its power could accomplish far more than the death of an adversary, for its wielder, both the wild Rudra and the Mahayogin Shiva, at once destroyer, creator, and preserver. And this, to me, since on the regular feed of the show, Rising from the Ashes, we're in our Celtic theme month, and the ancient Celts venerated the triple goddess, right? Like the highest form.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just another crossover of the Trinity itself, really, is what the trident is kind of symbolizing, right? So we'll go
there's
into...
usually like triangles at the top of the trident or something. It's usually pictured with triangles at the top of each spear.
Yeah, the Trishula is said to be bladed. It's a bladed weapon. It is a weapon. So that it has these blades, and the Trishula has been depicted in like a bunch of different ways. But here, this one, Neptune, he's got those barbs. It's kind of like obviously it's a relief on the building, but yeah, like that. So that's symbolic too. I mean, it's almost like, it looks like a candle, right? Kind of looks like a smaller version of like a menorah. Okay, so on to the next slide here. Though Zeus reigns over the fourth race, it is Poseidon who rules, and who is the true key to the triad of the Chronid brothers and to our human races, the secret doctrine. So we're going to go into here more of like some Atlantean history and Poseidon and some theosophical connections here. Poseidon is in distinction to the Narayana, the personification of the creative spirit of the Atlanteans, as well as their vices. Kronos, or Saturn, is said to have governed the earlier Lemurian race, wherein the lightning of the manas and the first acts of bestiality took place. Accordingly, Saturn, or Shiva, oversaw the fall of the Manasas into form and eventual degradation. And yet he embodies the key to self-consciousness, emancipation. Over the Atlantean recapitalization, more people. Okay, that's what the word means. Sorry, got a little. I can't say the words. Okay, of this process, as well as the increasingly conscious abuses of power, which characterize
recapitulation.
That race. Is that what it says? Okay, let me start this.
Recapitulation.
Over the Atlantean recapitulation of this process, as well as the increasingly conscious abuses of power, which characterize that race, Poseidon reigned supreme. In his reflected manifestation in ancient Greek myth, he continued to display the same higher creative potency, but also plumed the depths of the riotous animality, throwing up all sorts of monstrous forms, along with a sublime, When one considers the span and the overlap of the races and sub-races of humanity, it is likely many wheels within wheels are superimposed upon one another. The Atlantean race as a whole was at least 8 million years in duration, and the last remnant disappeared only 11,000 years ago. The Greeks represent a subdivision of the European family race, which continues to persist and has its origins in the last few thousand years of the Aryan fifth race. That goes back into the seed which developed of the Middle Atlantean race and came into its own over 1 million years ago. Thus, the Helladic expression of the the Helladic expression of the ancient ideas associated with the trident and the bull god represent the recapitulation in a short cycle of archetypal themes coming down to the astral impresses of the early root races and sub-races. So, for anyone who's not familiar with Theosophic work or Madame Blavatsky, who, you know, had these ancient sources of like mystic wisdom that, you know,
And
she was able
Helladic.
to, and she had Helladic. I mean, that's what the Theosophic Society is all about.
Right.
No, but I mean, PB Randall was a famous theosophist and like occultist who he does that. He has this great book called Magnetic Mirrors, and him and Madame Blavatsky kind of had a feud. But he was also one of the original fathers of like sex magic and like the rise of like the orgasm thing and manifestation and doing like weird activities with magnets and mirrors and like meditation during like the rise of spiritualism, which is all Madame Blavatsky stuff. But I love when they give this details of the Atlantean and Lemurian races. I love that as the Theosophic text. Like I like it. You know, it's satisfying to read. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah.
It's satisfying.
Worth it?
Okay, so funny enough, there's, you know, alchemical symbolism too related with the trident and its transmutability. So while looking up the more alchemical symbolism of the trident and some of its actual like physical science-based relations, found that
It's like the tree.
it is very much symbolized as a tree of life, and the Ankh as well. Which, if you were to put this alchemical vessel here, right, this chamber, and then you put the trident on top, you would get what looks like a globus cruciger, or that's actually the globus cruciger is antimony on the periodic table of elements, which is really interesting because so we're going to get into the trident and what it means. So it's obviously a symbol for putrefaction being one of the most important stages of the alchemical work, the composting, the breaking down, the going to the dirty depths, which is kind of symbolized with the Shiva and the Andara story of like, you know, killing that inner demon. So the putrefaction is like going into your shadows, going into the dark side. That's kind of why it's symbolized with black, with compost, and, you know, or the raven's beak, or the crow's beak, you know, and those sacred birds to the Norse gods and things like that. So it's also the symbol for bismuth. Now, this is fucking crazy, right? Because look at this. Like, you know, the stories of exactly. That's exactly it, right? You look at these ancient architectural pieces of ancient Hindu and ancient India, and they almost look like this, right? Like a city of gold, right? You're looking for this city of gold, and you get these images of like, this is the city made of gold? Is it a golden mineral that lives and it's grown naturally? Natural caverns? Can we manipulate it magnetically, electroform it, and create it? And that's what a lot of these people believe, you know, out here, like kind of deciphering some of these old ancient mysteries, that's a possibility, because you look at how Solomon's temple was built by a worm, the Shamir worm.
Shamir,
here we go. Smear it on my
Mhm.
bagel, baby. You know what I'm saying?
Are you gonna talk about the? Are you gonna? Are you gonna? Hold
Yeah.
up,
Anyways,
my mic
the
keeps fucking
bismuth.
up. You're not gonna talk about the Shamir, are you?
No, we're not going into the Shamir. Sorry.
Because we've been talking about the Shamir and the Ebbs and Flow podcast, and it's been pretty fascinating. The Shamir worm was one of the things God created in the eve of the seventh day, along with 9 other wonders. And the Shamir has 7 eyes, and it said its gaze. Hold on, sorry. Its gaze can melt rock.
Yes, that's crazy. I've read a bunch on the Shamir worm. It's kind of like, it's a symbol for something. It's like, it's what is it? Is it real? Is it liquid metal? Could be like a moving form of liquid metal, like mercury or something.
Language of the birds.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about this.
Well, the Shamir, what they were observing birds, and they put a piece of glass to block its nest, and then the bird would come back with the Shamir worm so it could melt the glass so it could get to its eggs. And then when the bird would come back with the Shamir, they would take the Shamir from the bird, and then they would be able to use it.
That's fucking crazy. Because that just means like it just melted. Like that could be. Is that a real study that happened recently, or that's like what they say about?
No, that's like the myth of it. And then if you look at like some of the North American, I think Native American peoples who talk about like how their cities were built, they said the bird people brought it to them, and it was able to melt stone. So it's kind of reminiscent of the same type of mythology.
Well, that's fascinating
that
because the mirror itself like is symbolic of like, portals and magic and divination
and Shah means Shah is like my fucking microphone, man. Shah is like it means like the sun or brightness. So Shamir, the Shah mirror would be like the sun reflecting on the mirror. Perhaps some type of magnification could facilitate this melting process. I don't know. That's just a thought. That's not.
Well, I mean, I like it because this whole like towards the end of this little slideshow thing, it's kind of make a joke about like the trident being a symbol for like a portal or like a nexus point or something. But let's stick on the bismuth here. So,
stick to the bismuth.
Stick to the straight to bismuth. Back to bismuth. So it's a really fascinating mineral, and it's often associated with quicksilver and mercury. So when you have the trident or Neptune being associated with bismuth, or Poseidon being associated with bismuth, you have that mercurial figure. So it's that transmutability. Bismuth crystals from supercooling makes bismuth closely related to iridium, Iris, the rainbow, the messenger of the gods. Is bismuth connected to Baphomet? Okay. Bismuth represents Baphomet, the severed head of Medusa, the head of Satan, the star of Algol, or Al Gore, you know what I'm saying? For a much deeper and important explanation on this powerful star that has so long been largely misinterpreted, see the New Covenant of Solomon. Algol is a binary star having a binary nature and a bright star and a dark star. Saturn, the dark star, Venus, the bright star, just as Baphomet has both the bright and the dark moons. Also seen on Baphomet's chest is the intertwining staff of Hermes, alchemical symbol for the union of opposites, the dark and the light, and the terms solve and coagula. Bismuth is closely related to Mercury as well, since it only is 3 columns away, and they're both highly diamagnetic. And they have his twin thing going on, the Ouroboros, the alchemy of thought, the Sphinx, Hermes. Yes. So bismuth on the periodic table is the number 83. And some researchers associate the number 83
with the 8th letter of the alphabet being H and the 3rd letter being C, 83 standing for Hail Christ, a greeting sometimes not always used by racist organizations that consider themselves also to be Christian. This symbology is also known as used by many non-racist Christians and non-denominational Christian churches or non-denominational churches. Funny association. But, you know, if you've done any digging on like the esoteric layout of the table of elements, it's kind of fun. And bismuth having this like really interesting diamagnetic quality similar to mercury is really fascinating. I mean, there's so much going on in the mineral world. I know we're going to cover ancient mining at some point, and that's going to crack some codes, man, because history is mining. We wouldn't be anywhere without metallurgy. It's like agriculture. Mining is as big as a part of the revolution of where we've gotten today is agriculture. So it was given to us by the gods, right? Just like agriculture was to create society. So it's super fucking interesting and it's important. So the fact that the trident is symbolized with bismuth is rather interesting, I will say. So the evidence for the antiquity and wide diffusion of the trident is indeed abundant. In Egypt, inscription of Edfu relates how Horus was transformed into a winged globe in order to fight the armies of Set. For a weapon, he is shown using a 3-pronged spear, whilst the winged disc itself resembles a Mesopotamian design which has horns atop the globe, shape around an upraised knob, suggesting the form of a trident. The crowns of Egyptian and Mesopotamian gods often bore such horns, with the central pillar extending upwards between them, like the caduceus. That such a motif should appear together with the winged globe is especially instructive, and their combined elements may be found in various forms. Of the caduceus, the transmission of ideas and symbols from the ancient India into the Mediterranean world and back again was frequent and enormously productive of rich cross-fertilization. The caduceus has been associated since prehistoric times with Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece, but the trident has been called the caduceus of India by those who have recognized the similarity of elements between the two symbolic forms. You got the winged disc, and yeah, you got the horns coming off here up on the top. It's got horns coming out of the head. Could be antennas, you know, I don't know. Whatever. The sun is a mirror, right? Because like in some like old like Aztec art, you know, they have like the circle, and that's supposed to be symbolic of a mirror. They would wear mirrors on their foreheads and their bellies and their backs and the pelvis region. And we've gone over that with Tezcatlipoca here on the show before. So it's kind of interesting talking about the mirror reflection and the bird, right? The bird people, language of the birds right here, man. Steering through that sun mirror, creating that portal, giving them the access to be able to control. I think, dude, imagine this. Okay, we're getting a little crazy. Okay, let's get a little weird. Okay, so these gods are able to control like water, right, with these staffs. Well, what if some of these other like ancient hieroglyphs of like some of these weird scepters and stuff are able to literally control the minerals in the ground, therefore to create, you know, buildings out of just like moving or manifesting or wielding these like specific ancient etherical weapons or tools, let's call them, I guess. You guys know what I'm saying. Anyways, so the Trishula of Shiva. Here's the classic. Like that is the trident. Look at that one, dude. Sexy,
gorgeous. Look at that thing.
Gorgeous. So the Trishula of Shiva. And we went over this a little bit in the beginning, but I wanted to show a picture.
It's a shocker, dude.
Oh. Dude,
one for the booty,
chakras.
one for the one for the yoni, and one for the nub. That's the shocker.
There you go. The triple potency. Okay. All right.
Well, it is a shocker too, right? Because it's electrified.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something there. Yeah, like I think I think so. I think that's what the Trinity, I mean, symbolically resembles. And our boy LC can go into that with like the Trinity in the battery, like kind of like it being this 3-part component you need in order to like transmute ether into a usable form of electricity, or consolidating it or what have you. So
Interesting.
I'm trying to hammer through this. So the resemblance of the outer prongs of the Trisula to a bull's horns relates to Nandi, Shiva's Vahan, but also to Shiva himself, who is praised in the Mahabharata of the Bull of Bulls, and elsewhere called the Rider of the Bull. It is perhaps significant that the Zebu bull, of which Nandi is a lordly example, possesses enormous fecundating powers. Symbolically, Nandi signifies this creative potency transmuted into intellectual command. He is known as a manifestation of Dharma in all of its earthly ferocity and ethereal graciousness. Represents controlled virility. Rudra Shiva as the bull god can be traced back to the ancient Harappan civilization, and probably beyond thousands of years ago. In Indus Valley, artisans molded a mysterious design showing a horned ithyphallic god seated in a lotus position. From either side of his head emerging a mighty crescent horns, whose tips arch back towards the high pillar that projects straight up from the middle of a somewhat bovine head. The perfect human body illustrates the classic pose of a yogi. The arms that are extended out in a triangle to the knees, and the feet are brought together at the groin, from which an upright phallus stands. The complex associations are here to the Shaivite bull deities found in Anatolia, Egypt, Mesopotamia during the Minoan flowering on the island of Crete. From the 6th millennium BC, there was a steady spread of Shaivism to the west, and the images connected with these cults incorporated many of the many of the elements of the ithyphallic god, including the serpents and the Lady of the Mountains.
It's interesting, the time of the bull, because the alchemistic symbol for bismuth is actually a bull symbol. It's like a figure 8 with the top part missing, so it looks like 2 horns at the top of a 8.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, that's why. Yeah, I was saying that the trident is also symbolism. Or in other forms, because there's different variations of it. So you found one that looks like just like a circle with a hole, or circle with horns on it.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Like the top of the Mercury symbol.
Exactly. So, and that's why bismuth, Mercury, they have that transmutability. They have that they're able to like maneuver and move. And
bismuth.
Man, mind your bismuth. The Trishula symbolism is, but anyways, that was a clear depiction of Baphomet as well. So, right, that depiction of Shiva as the bull god, which is interesting when you like look at some of these initiatory practice, or cults, whatever, like the Freemasons and the Templars and whatnot, and their worship of Baphomet, if that's connected directly to Shiva. And they're like hailing to Shiva, then that's really interesting. So I'm gonna skip this one. Okay. No, you know what? I'm not gonna skip that one because it's actually important. So listen, the Trishula symbolism is polyvalent and rich. It is wielded by the god Shiva and is said to have used to sever the original head of Ganesha. Durga also holds the Trishula as one of her many weapons. The 3 points have various meanings and significance in common to Hinduism, have many stories behind them. They are commonly said to represent various trinities: creation, maintenance, and destruction, past, present, future, body, mind, Atman, Dharma, and Dhamma, law and order, bliss, mutual enjoyment, and created emanation, compassion, joy, love, spiritual, psychic, and relative happiness. Whatever. We get the Trinity here, bud. How many times you got to put it in here? So it's a symbol of the Trinity, man. That's what I'm trying to say, everybody. A later depiction of an actual, like, to be held by man right? Like man was trying to
Mm-mm.
create this for themselves as a weapon.
Kind of looks like the Viking helmet too, the horned Viking helmet that people say Vikings wore.
Oh,
Mm.
oh, damn it! Did it jump me all the way to the top? That's ridiculous.
Ah,
Sorry.
You're on 17.
Sweet, thank you. So I sidedirected from that for to go into another little, because there's so many ancient cultures, right? Like there's no way, unless you're like literally studied and doctorate in this stuff, to like know all these cultures. But I found this Javanese culture, and I was like, Javanese? It's like obviously it sounds a lot like Japanese, but it's from Java, or I'm not sure how the correct pronunciation of it is. Java, maybe.
Java.
Is it Java?
As far as I know,
Super,
yeah.
it's super
What's
cool.
Yeah. That's where you get a Java chip latte.
Different Java. Same word.
So what I thought was cool about this,
Jerk.
we got puns all day. We got puns.
Yeah.
They're super cool Indonesian culture, and they have like beautiful architecture, you know, as per usual there in that part of the world. Like
It's
some of this
the
architecture.
Starbucks.
Hey, that's kind of like, you know, the triple goddess kind of symbolism too.
True.
Starbucks and yeah, so that is kind of interesting. Java, coffee. Like, why did we get the name Java? Like, is this a region that grows a lot of coffee?
I
Look at
think
this
they make
temple.
coffee in Java.
Mm-hmm.
There's coffees from all around the world.
Yeah, no, for sure,
No doubt.
absolutely, no doubt. Coffee here in Hawaii. I would love for everybody to come visit. We'll go to some
Kona.
coffee farms.
Kona.
Kona town.
Woo. That's one of my favorite
Woo.
monsters.
Favorite monsters? Kona.
Monster coffee
Oh.
makes a Kona.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Here's Neptune, chilling. Poseidon,
Chilling.
chilling. Just what's up? He's got his bay. He's got his homie over here. He's part dragon, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like a dragon horse crossover.
Yeah. Let me.
Whoa.
Can I get into
Is
this
Neptune?
a little bit?
Absolutely.
Because Neptune is associated with the serpent, but so's like fucking microphone, Yormunger, which is the world serpent.
Yeah.
So what the serpent kind of represents sometimes in this is the water, the ocean, which is why it's a representation of Neptune also. So it's telling you it's the vast ocean, the sea, the serpent. So
And he's got
deep
the
not necessarily a actual serpent. It's the uncontrollable unpredictability of the ocean, and the fact that they feared the ocean because it was unpredictable. This is why the sea peoples worshipped.
Whilst the
Neptune
trident
to-
holds the power over the water and can control, like the whole power of the trident is to control that chaos. So like holding,
right.
you know,
Yeah.
like living within it and like having that magical ability. That's tight. That's beautiful. That's wonderful.
Absolutely. Now, who's this figure next to his wife Amphitrite that's sitting on his tail with her?
Aquarius, motherfucker.
That's Aquarius.
The water
It's
bear.
gotta be. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
water bear. He's holding the two-handled vessel, right?
Is it a mirror?
It's Aquarius. It's Draco.
Well, you know, like the original mirror was the water.
Mm-hmm.
True.
It was.
So maybe it's like some mirrors are portals. Like we've come to this. Like it is a thing. This guy looks like he's covered in hair. Are they like Sasquatch, half Sasquatch, or?
I don't think they're. I think it's just
Greek people are hairy.
color. I think it's color.
Just kidding. I was just kidding. I don't actually think.
I think
that
it's
reminds me
color.
The Teachings of Don Juan series, they talk about putting a black mirror in the water to open a portal to the underworld.
What?
And a black
Yes.
mirror made from obsidian. We were talking about that
Yes.
in the shows.
Yes. Very fucking cool. We're gonna have to do an entire episode on that.
Oh yeah.
Cool
I think it's
scenario.
just the color the pigment has faded out, and now it kind of just looks like the
No, I
background
know I was
color.
making a passing joke, and then now we're hung on the
Okay.
the Sasquatch gods. I mean, who knows, you
Okay.
know? Um,
Harry Mary.
here's so I read in some articles too that the trident was later depicted as it's kind of like symbolism for the lotus or the fleur de lis. Fleur de lis design
Mm.
later was thus sprung from this trident. And here's just some more connections to Shiva and Neptune, or this kind of crossover. Neptune is one of the only 4 Roman gods who it was considered appropriate to sacrifice a bull. There were 3: Apollo, Mars, and Jupiter, although Jupiter has been depicted with the offering of a red bull or a red bull calf.
Oh, Red Bull
In
gives
Red
you
Bull,
wings.
exactly, you got to sacrifice the Red Bull, give you wings, dude. Yes, exactly. That's why I
And
put
drink
it here.
that bull sperm.
Oh my god, that is so. Isn't it you? Oh my gosh! If an incorrect offering was presented, either inadvertently or due to necessarily additional propalation, was required to avoid divine retribution. This type of offering implied a stricter connection between the deity and the world. So, okay, so the
If we
it
could
taking
get
shape as a
sponsored by Red
bowl.
Bull, that'd be cool. I'm down with a sponsorship from Red Bull. I drink
I
a lot of
worked at
energy drinks.
that
I
bar.
shouldn't, but I do.
You
And
should
if Red
not.
Bull wants to sponsor us for esoteric reasons, I'm not against it. Just saying.
I feel
You
it.
know, you know what? I'm down. If I mean, hey, you know, maybe we get to like do some cool shit, like drop out of a plane with some like parachutes and skydive with a
Yeah.
Red Bull
I ain't fucking
parachute.
doing that.
Come on, you ain't gonna get. We gotta get sponsored. We'd be like, Esoterica meets extreme sports, right?
Okay.
So we'll like make some wax wings, right? Fly a little
Oh,
close to the
yeah, so they
sun,
can fucking
right?
melt.
Yeah.
Like Icarus and shit.
Oh goodness. Okay, so wait, what?
Anyway,
What
carry on.
the secret Antarctic trident portal?
Because
No,
Antarctica was the home of
no
Neptune,
way.
Poseidon.
All right.
That's
The trident is Poseidon's ridge, surmounted by 3 peaks, the highest at 1,335 meters, standing at the east side of the Briggs Glacier in South
East
Georgia,
side?
and the South Sandwich Islands. The name is descriptive of the 3
Sandwich.
peaks and was given to the United Kingdom Antarctic Place Names Committee. The UK APC, following survey by the SGS in the period of 1951 through 1957, the 3 discrete summits were renamed from the south to north: Mount Thalassa, Mount Poseidon, and Mount Tethys. So then I started going down this rabbit hole. I was like, oh my god, like what? I like looked this up, and then I was like, shit, okay, what is the South Georgia Islands? And I just saw Elsie's comment here. It's kind of funny. It's hilarious, not kind of funny. I'm sorry, I'm such a dick.
What, jump out of the plane with a trident? Yeah, we should.
Yeah, I'm down. Just fight on the way down. We'll be like a Ouroboros, and you got to
Trident
use my
of
body to
dildo.
break the fall. I'd sacrifice that for
Yeah.
you. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
that's very nice.
Anyways, I would. But I'm not saying I will. I would. They're
Wow.
different words. Okay.
It's amazing.
No, I'm just kidding. So
I'm
I
overjoyed.
was like, okay, the South Georgia Islands. What is this? It's a tiny island chain with 30 people that are only researchers living there, and it's owned by the UK. It's like, oh, that's super weird. I was like, oh, and I was like, there's got to be more like little Antarctic islands, you know, with like weird people that own them, you know. And I was like, what? So this is the seal of the South Georgia Islands. You got the penguin, you got the seal, you got the moose, and you got the lion holding the flame. Which who else hold the flame? Hecate holds the flame. She holds the flame of the door. So I don't know. Maybe the lion is Hecate, and it's a Shiva Hecate. So these are the islands of the Antarctic. Okay, there are 42 that are listed here.
That's a buck up at the top, which would be in the stars. That's your Starbuck.
That's your Starbucks straight up.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
In the stars.
So look at these names in these islands. I thought this was kind of interesting, and these are all really really small.
Woo, woo.
Coronation Island, Thurston Deception Island,
Mhm.
which is an active volcano. I looked up. South Georgia Island and King George Island are all named from King George III, who we'll get into in just a second.
There's
But
some
Who
people
killed
that
the
live on
dragon?
Elephant Island.
say it again.
Elephant Island is inhabitable. There's people there. It's a little higher up.
Oh, nice, nice.
Rothschild Island. What the
Yeah,
fuck?
so that's what I was saying. There's a Rothschild Island. There's a Mason Island.
They got all the money.
Yep. And they're doing
It's
like
because the Atlanteans controlled all of the islands.
that's right.
So
They have the tridents. They have the tridents.
St. Paul.
Whatchamacallit? Bird Dog said that we're the trident. Indy, Basher, and Gator.
Ooh, the trident, trifecta, triad.
The,
All that.
the triple Daniel goddess. Let's
Triple.
go.
Yeah.
So so I just wanted to go into the King George Island just for a second,
Okay.
and then we're done. So I was like, because I was like, I love all these like these kings, right? Like they were all into the esoteric, the occult, the like, the bloodline, keeping it all together, the royal family, right? Because they had to stay in power and they had plans. They have some weird knowledge that we don't, some bullshit, right? That's only kept in the higher echelons. So I was like, George III, this guy's straight George Washington, bro. Look at this fool, bro. Come on, son. George William Frederick, the King of Great Britain and of Ireland, from October 25th, which is my birthday, by the way. Nobody ever forget when my birthday is. October 25th, the greatest day on the planet, okay? The greatest day in history. The day that George III reigned over Ireland. What a great day in history. Anyways, this is really it. I want to just show you guys pictures of this fucking turd. Look at this guy.
Are you a descendant?
I think I am. I really do. I think that's why I found
think
him.
so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he dresses kind of like you.
Oh yeah, no, this swag. Are you kidding me? Tell me you wouldn't try to cuddle up in here.
Looks like Ermine.
Must have been really cold. Must have been really cold to be wearing all that shit all the time,
How's this? So King George is the tiny child, okay, living the life. You see this? He's like, me and my cousin Pope Frederick. And he's like, he's got the leg here. Look at that. One leg, little back. They're having a good time. They're having a good time. I'm telling you. And guys over here. Anyways,
Got the Riker lean.
Like, who is this?
Lean with it, rock with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who it is, but it looks like a judge.
It's a Dan. Okay, so
is he holding a gavel? Is that a gavel?
Oh wait, was it a gavel?
It's like a brick.
That's a book.
Oh, it's a Bible.
He's got the book of law in his hand. The Bible.
I got one hand in my pocket and the other one on a cipheric note.
Ciphers.
Ciphers. Well, okay, so to wrap up the trident symbolism and the Poseidon's trident, basically, since we can associate it with a bull, since we can associate it with the Trinity, we can associate it with Shiva and Hecate. I find it safe to say that it is a key. Hecate holds a key. Also, as well as these two flames, and the bull is often represented as the first letter of the alphabet, right? With Aleph being the horns, and the bull, the sacred bull being Shiva. Or there's also that famous story of the Minotaur being gifted in the middle of the labyrinth, and this bull being a magic Minotaur, and so it's like, okay. The secrets and the mysteries of the higher echelons of esoteric situation that we find ourselves in, this hidden knowledge of antiquity, lies beyond the doors of the labyrinth, through the head of the bull, to grab life by the horns and to ride into the dark mystery. And I think that's what the symbolism of keys are, and the trident. The trident and the keys are one and the same. So Hecate being the triple goddess, the Trinity being symbolized by Hecate herself, the transitions of the moon, and so on and so forth. That, and also the Key of Solomon is a big one. So it's like keys, and also keys are islands, right? Like the Florida Keys. So you have that island connection as well. I don't know, guys. I just found myself in a little rabbit hole, and here we are.
Dig it, man. The bull symbolism is huge, and it's very prevalent in a lot of cultures. We have the letter A being the bull upside down, still to this day.
Baphomet.
Yeah.
As above, so below. Hermetic goodness. Yeah, I definitely think that. I mean, I think we all can agree that the language is a cipher, the alphabets are a cipher, and it's all, we got to decode it. We're just pulling off this cheesecloth, you know. We're about to ferment this milk.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna share your screen, brother.
Oh, excellent. Here we go. All right, so I got the gram, sometimes spelled gram R with an R on the end, grammar. Now, this is a Norse sword, mythological, legendary, magical sword. And it ties back to having been wielded by, sometimes called Sigmund or Sigurd. Sigurd is the original name. But what really happened, how the sword came into being, was that Odin struck that sword into the world tree, Barnstoker, and only Sigmund could withdraw the sword from the world tree. And so then he later wielded it in battle and slayed the dragon Fafnir and cut out his heart to roast it. Now let me go into this article here. We can.
Sounds like another sword stuck in something.
Sword. It's probably maybe connected to the sword of Avalon, the Excalibur. Might be the origin of that story. I think a lot of this stuff goes back a little further, back in
Sick. I love that.
Icelandic.
Yes.
So, not to be confused with the creature known as Gammer or Garmer or Garm. Balmung redirects here for the character franchise. See Balmung. Okay. So that's just a side note. Now, in Norse mythology, the Gram, also known as the Balmung or the Nothung, is the sword that Sigurd used to kill the dragon Fafnir. It's primarily used by the Volsungs in the Volsunga saga. However, it's also seen in other legends, such as the Thidrek saga, in which it is wielded by Hildebrand. Depending on the story and the material source, the Gram may have other names. In the Nibelungenlied, it's named the Balmung. In Richard Wagner's work, Der Ring des Nibelungen, the Ring of the Nibelungen, it is referred to as the Nothung, as was mentioned earlier. Now, here's a description. Nowhere in the Volsunga saga is a clear description of the Gram given, but there is enough scattered throughout the story to draw a picture of the sword. Sigurd's weapon, Gram included, are described as being all decked with gold and gleaming bright. Depending on how the text is read, the sword may or may not have a dragon emblazoned on it, and or, depending on the translation, have been brown of hue. So I think a lot of these different names that they have to represent the Gram kind of refer to as it was passed down from Odin down to Sigurd, and then later passed down to other individuals like King Dane that got passed down to later, which we might go into here. The Gram is primarily seen in the Volsunga saga, used by men in the Volsung line after Sigmund. Sigmund receives it during the wedding feast for his sister, Signy. Part of the way through the feast, a strange man appears carrying a sword. Although unknown to Sigmund, this is the god Odin. He thrust the sword into the barnstoker tree that grew in the middle of the hall and said, "The man to pull out this sword from the trunk shall receive it from me as a gift, and he will find out for himself that he never bore in hand a better sword than this." Soon
The
after-
Barnstoker tree.
Barnstoker tree.
What does that sound like to you? Bram
Bram
Stoker?
The
Yeah.
vampire hunter.
Mm-hmm.
It also resembles something else, but I can't place it.
Oh,
It'll
hey,
come to me.
Lilith and Hecate have also been associated with vampires. Just saying.
Ah, fascinating. All connected. Soon after he departed, every man made his attempt to pull the sword out of the wood, all failed except for Sigmund, who easily extracts it. The sword is a fine sword, and King Siggeir is covetous of it, offering Sigmund 3 times its weight in gold. When he refuses, King Siggeir grows angry and secretly begins plotting to steal it from Sigmund, eventually killing his father and capturing him and all of his brothers. After this, the sword disappears from the narrative until Signy, Sigmund's sister, secretly gives it back to Sigmund as he is buried alive with Sinfjotli. After Sigmund avenges his family, he uses the sword in several battles before it is eventually broken by Odin during Sigmund's final battle with King Linvi. Thordis, Sigmund's wife, takes up the 2 halves of the blade and keeps them for Sigurd, their son. Okay, so Sigurd is the son of Sigmund. Interesting. After Graham was broken by Odin, Hjordis took the 2 halves and kept them for her future son. Soon after, the dwarven smith, Regin, comes and begins teaching Sigurd. After a period of time, he tells Sigurd of the mighty dragon Fafnir and the treasure which it guards. Asking Sigurd to slay it for him, Sigurd agrees on one condition, that Regin makes him a mighty sword capable of slaying such a monster. Regin confidently makes Sigurd an admirable sword, and when Sigurd sees it, he's disappointed and breaks it over the anvil. On the second attempt, Regin makes a sword superior to the last, but it also breaks. On his third attempt, Sigurd brings Regin the 2 halves of Graham, his father's sword, and when he strikes it on the anvil with Graham, it is cloven in 2. Once he tested the strength of the sword, he left the workshop and went to a nearby stream to check its edge. Throwing a piece of wood upstream, he lets it press against the Graham, causing it to be sliced through. After testing the blade's sharpness, he uses it to avenge his father, Sigmund, slaying the king Lyngvi. One of the many feats done by Graham, by far the most well-known and important, is slaying of Fafnir, the dragon. This deed is accomplished by Sigurd with a single mighty thrust to the left shoulder, where he drives the sword so deep he gets his arm bloodied up to the shoulder. Eventually, Graham is used as a sign of chastity when it is placed between Sigurd and Brunhild on the funeral pyre after Brunhild arranges Sigurd's death before killing herself in turn. After this, the sword is no longer found in manuscript. All right. So there's a little story of Graham kind of tying in with the story of Excalibur in a lot of ways. The sword of Arthur Pendragon, which became known as the Sword of the Stone. And some of the other names of the Graham are the Gambontian, which is kind of the traditional name of it.
What if this sword in the stone is like a like an allegory or symbolic of like the alchemical process of metallurgy itself, like extracting and separating these minerals to get pure metal, or like the putrefying it or separating it, you know, like
Absolutely.
it's like, can you pull the sword out of the stone? Well, can you go through the alchemical process to like
create metal, like to do that, the transmutive process or whatever.
Yeah, that's always so curious how they mine for these ores and how they purify them and build these strong swords.
Yeah.
So I imagine they probably make it into like almost a surgical steel if you can't break it over an anvil, and it's got that sharpness to it that won't dull. A lot of these sword legends, they're so sharp that they can cut through armor. So it's probably like Damascus steel or something like that, and they're just master alchemists able to make these blades so strong and so sharp.
Yeah, like maybe like got some like they were able to get like electricity or juice up in it. So it's like
Yeah, absolutely.
That's super cool, man. Thanks for sharing that story. I love
Yeah, man.
like looking at the Norse stories and hieroglyphs and the pictures and seeing how it like cross correlates with the ancient Hindu or like ancient Egypt, you know, like
Yeah,
depicting these
there's a lot of
stories are so
connections with
cool,
these
man.
stories. And
So
everybody
many.
knows about the Mjolnir of Thor. You know, we can go into that a little bit later, but I figured I wanted to touch on one that's not as well known, but it's quite a formidable story, and it's got ties in a lot of characters.
Yeah, that's awesome because I'm gonna do Excalibur, and
Cool.
you can see a lot of crossover with that story you just told and Excalibur. So that'll be interesting. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people already know about Excalibur,
Sure, there's some
so
stuff
I'm
they
not
don't
gonna
know.
like go crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a legendary sword of King Arthur, sometimes attributed
X
with
marks the spot, baby.
magical powers associated with the rightful sovereignty of Britain. It was associated with Arthurian legend very early on. Excalibur and the sword in the stone, the proof of Arthur's lineage, are not the same weapon, though in some modern incarnations they are either the same or at least share their name. In Welsh, it is called Celdwick. In Cornish, Celavissel. In modern Cornish, Celavol. In Breton, Caldavolic. And in Latin, Caliburnus. Several similar swords and other weapons also appear in this and other legends. The name Excalibur ultimately derives from the Welsh Caladfwic and Breton, blah, 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 middle corner, blah, 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 which is a compound of Caled, hard, and Bawick, breach or cleft. Caladwick appears in several early Welsh books, including the Prose Tale, Colwick, and Olwen. The name was later used in Welsh adaptations of foreign material such as the Bruts, which means chronicles, which were based on Geoffrey of Monmouth. It is often considered to be related to the phonetically similar Caladbolg, a sword borne by several figures from Irish mythology. Although a borrowing of Caladwick from Irish Caladbolg has been considered unlikely by Rachel Bromwich and D. Simon Evans, they suggest instead that both names may have similarly arisen at a very early date as generic names for a sword. The sword then became exclusively the property of Arthur in British tradition. Geoffrey of Monmouth, in his Historia Regum Britannia, the history of the kings of Britain, Latta said the name of Arthur's sword as Caliburns potentially influenced by the medieval Latin spelling Calibus of classical Latin, blah, blah, blah. Arthur's sword is called, which etymologically an exact Middle Cornish cognate of the Welsh Caladwick. It is unclear if the name was borrowed from Welsh. If so, it must have been an early loan or for phonological reasons, or represents an early Pan-Britannic traditional name for Arthur's sword. The sword in the stone and the sword in the lake. In Arthurian romance, a number of explanations are given for Arthur's possession of Excalibur. In Robert de Boon's Merlin, the first tale to mention the sword in the stone motif, 1200 AD. Arthur obtained the British throne by pulling a sword from an anvil. sitting atop a stone that appeared in a churchyard on Christmas Eve. What if that tree that other sword, the Bram, was pulled from was what's it called? Petrified,
Yeah.
and turned into a stone later, and this is the same sword.
Oh, it's like a shape shifting sword.
The
No. I'm
tree's
saying that
shape-shifting and
the tree petrified into stone from its original tree, but
Oh
over
shit!
time petrified. Yeah.
Yeah, and forged it from the tree. That's
I think
wow.
they kind of mix trees and rocks together through cultures and stories.
And that could also be true.
Yeah, because like Jesus was said to be a carpenter, but he lived in the desert. There's no trees there. Like, and it's thought now that he was actually a mason. He made chairs. They just assumed that he was making them out of wood. He probably made chairs out of
Yeah.
stone. So I think these two get mixed up on that fact sometimes.
Using the Shamir worm.
No doubt. Absolutely.
Arthur obtained the British throne by pulling the sword from an anvil sitting atop a stone that appeared in a churchyard on Christmas Eve. So there's another relation to Jesus there.
Cool.
In this account, as foretold by Merlin, the act could not be performed except by the true king, meaning the divinely appointed king or true heir of the Uther Pendragon. The scene is set by different authors at either London or generally in Logres, and might have been inspired by a miracle attributed to the 11th century bishop Wulfstan of Worcester. As Mallory related in his most famous English language version of the Arthurian tales, the 15th century La Morte d'Arthur, whoso pulleth out this sword of this stone and anvil is rightwise king born of all England. After many of the gathered nobles try and fail to complete Merlin's challenge, the teenage Arthur, who up to this point had believed himself to be son of Sir Ector, not Uther's son, and went there as Sir Kay's squire, does this feat effortlessly by accident and then repeats it publicly. The identity of the sword as Excalibur is made explicit in the Prose Merlin, a part of the Lancelot Grail cycle of French romances, the Vulgate cycle. Eventually, in the cycle's final Vulgate, Mort Artu, when Arthur is at the brink of death, he orders Griffith to cast Excalibur in the enchanted lake. After 2 failed attempts, as he felt such a great sword should not be thrown away, Grifflet finally complies with the wounded king's request, and a hand emerges from the lake to catch it. This tail becomes attached to Bedivere or Yvain in the Scala Chronica instead of Grifflet in Mallory in the English tradition. However, in the post-Vulgate cycle, and consequently Mallory, Arthur breaks the sword from the stone while in combat against King Pellinore very early in his reign. On Merlin's advice, he goes with him to be given Excalibur by a lady in the lake. In exchange for later boon for her, sometime later, she arrives at Arthur's court to demand the head of Balin. Mallory records both versions of the legend in his La Morte d'Arthur, naming each sword as Excalibur. In the Welsh legends, Arthur's sword is known as Califwick in Culwick and Olwen. It is one of Arthur's most valuable possessions and is used by Arthur's warrior Liaug. Don't hate me for saying these names wrong. The Irishman to kill the Irish king Dwarnoch while stealing his magical cauldron. Though not named as Califwick, Arthur's sword is described vividly in the dream of Ronambui, one of the tales associated with the Mabinogion, as translated by Geoffrey Gantz. Then they heard Codware, Earl of Cornwall, being summoned and saw him rise with Arthur's sword in his hand with the design of 2 chimeras on the golden hilt. When the sword was unearthed, What was seen from the mouths of the two chimeras was like two flames of fire, so dreadful it was not easy for anyone to look. Geoffrey's Historia, in the first non-Welsh source to speak of the sword, Geoffrey says the sword was forged in Avalon, and Latensis, the name Calarwick and Caliburnus, when his influential pseudo-history made it to continental Europe, writers altered the name further until it finally came upon the popular form Excalibur. Various spellings in the medieval Arthurian romance and chronicle tradition include Calibrun, Calibrum, Caliborn, Calibork, 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 Excalibork, and Excalibur. The legend
You all right
was
over there?
expanded. Yeah,
Sound like
I
you're
got
gonna hiccup.
Tourette's. The legend was expanded upon in the Vulgate cycle and in the post-Vulgate cycle, which emerged in his wake. Both of them included the prose Merlin. However, the post-Vulgate authors left out the original Merlin continuation from earlier cycle, choosing to add an original account of Arthur's early days, including a new origin for Excalibur. In some versions, Excalibur's blade was engraved with phrases on opposite sides: "Take me up and cast me away," or similar. In addition, it is said that when Excalibur was first drawn in combat, in the first battle testing Arthur's sovereignty, its blade shined so bright it blinded his enemies.
Oh, blinding sword.
Yeah, there's some other. I was going to go into this one. In Welsh mythology, there's a sword called the Dernwyn, which means white tilt. And it's one of the 13 treasures of the islands of Britain. It is said to be a powerful sword belonging to Roderick Hale, one of the 3 generous men of Britain mentioned in the Welsh triads. When drawn by a worthy or well-born man, the entire blade would blaze with fire. Roderick was never reluctant to hand the weapon to anyone, hence the nickname Hale, the generous, but the recipients, as soon as they had learned of its particular properties, always rejected the sword. There are other similar weapons described in other mythologies as well. The Irish mythology mentions a weapon called Calidbolg, the sword of Fergus Macroch, which was also known for its incredible power and was carried by some of Ireland's greatest heroes. Interestingly, that sword of fire, it also says in another one that I read that only men what was the word, that were worthy of wielding the sword, if they used it for good, it would burn its enemies, but if they were using it for bad, here it is, when drawn shit, fucking microphone, man. When drawn, it blazed with fire. If drawn by a worthy man, the fire would help him in his cause. But if its fire would burn the man who drew it for an unworthy purpose. So it's kind of poetic in that way. But up here in the other thing where it was talking about Excalibur, it said it shined bright, or there's another idea that it had some type of fire glow about it. There's also more stories about Arthur, and I think there's other weapon. Let me see if I can find this other weapon.
The Calibur
because
it's also
go
said
ahead.
to have powers that it could make a circle like the arc of a rainbow when swung, and has the power to cleave off the top of 3 trees in a swing.
Whoa, that's very symbolically specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's from the Ulster cycle of the Irish mythology. But that's fascinating. But also you mentioned the sword of fire,
other
which
sword,
is Uriel's sword in the Bible. which is sometimes carried by Gabriel or Archangel Michael.
Oh yeah,
It was also used by the cherubs to drive Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden.
Well, in that article that you read, Indy, about grammar and brawn, there's another sword in Arthurian legend called the Clarent, and it's King Arthur's sword of peace, also known as Coward's Blade, and it is the sword Mordred, his son, stole and later used to kill him with it. And in that story you read, the same thing happened. The person, his son, wielded the sword and then killed him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's very similar.
Yeah, it kind of ties back to the story of Horus too. That kind of got vengeance for his father's death, coming at Seth.
Yeah. Yeah, LC said sword and words, logos. Yeah, I was thinking about that too when it said it had it was sharp, like grammar. Words have sharp tongue or speaking with a sharp tongue.
Pen is mightier than the sword.
Yeah, things like that, having to do with language and whatnot, and pulling language from the tree of knowledge, or articulating Arthur Calder
of the syncretism.
Yeah.
So that blade was used to avenge his father's death.
The Clarent was Arthur's sword, and his son Mordred stole it from him, and then killed him with it.
Oh shoot!
Yeah. So he was killed by his own son.
Blade. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like a cursed sword in that respect.
Man. I have a little article on the Sword of Light from the tribe of Dan.
Okay, yeah. Ooh. That's Lou's sword.
I think it is.
Sword of Blue. Is that the? Oh shit! It is raining. Classic Hawaii, man. I just look up out of nowhere, went from pure blue to just dumping monsoon. Sweet crispy tots. Can you guys hear it?
Belong to Nuwata.
Oh, Nuwata.
Yeah. Whoa, I hear it now. Can't miss that. Also known as the White Glaive of Light.
Oh, see, this one has the white hilt.
Fascinating.
That was the Dernwin meant white hilt, and that was the flaming sword of fire.
White hilt coming to you on AMC Plus.
All right.
Did you
follow a lost mother and her son on the White Hilt journey to the golden
hilt,
the golden bismuth grounds of ancient Antarctica?
Epic. So in mythology, we've always placed a role of shaping a country's culture with a lot of the myths associated with that culture. And in the magnificent marvel of Ireland lies countless interesting tales, a parallel world of mystical phenomena and supernatural godlike creatures. Groups of mystical races from which the Irish supposedly descended. The Tuatha De Danann, or tribe of Dan, is just one of those many mystical races. In the Sword of Light is the second treasure of the Tuatha De Danann, or tribe of Dan, having belonged to Nuwata, the first king of the race. It came from Phineas City. The sword has actually made an appearance in plenty of Irish folk tales. It plays a part in Scottish myths as well. There were several names to it: the Shining Sword, the White Glaive of Light, and the Sword of Light. The Irish equivalent to its name is the Clauim Solius, or the Clydhaim Soluis. And you guys feel free to correct me if you know how to pronounce those better. But I try. There were many
you already
tales.
know I don't, man.
These are tricky ones. There were many tales that featured the sword. Those which did feature it obliged the keeper of the sword to execute 3 sets of tasks. He shall also be a hag or of an undefeatable giant. However, he shouldn't do the tasks all by himself, and he needed to have some helpers. Those helpers are usually animals with skills, supernatural beings, and female serpents. The sword makes the keeper insuperable and impossible to defeat. If someone ever beat the hero, then that was through secret supernatural means. It was one more item that ensured the strength of the Tuatha De Danann. Despite the strength of the sword, it was never enough in beating an enemy by itself. The enemy was usually a supernatural being, so the hero had to attack him on defenseless body spot. As we previously stated, it could be a specific part of the body. Conversely, it could sometimes be in the form of an external soul. The soul could possess the body of an animal. So that's a wild story. There's a lot of interesting complexities of the Sword of Light being used as a magic blade to attack supernatural beings.
I have another story of a flaming sword of fire,
Cool. Bring it on.
which is
Kinda
the one
Reminds
from
me of,
the
we were
Bible.
talking earlier with the electricity and the sword, and there being some sort of like extra juice given to them, or they're harnessing this extra juice or something like that. That was cool, man. It was cool.
Yeah.
But the other flaming sword is the one from the Bible after he kicked Adam out from, after God kicked Adam out from the Garden of Eden. He
Yeah.
placed a flaming sword to guard the entrance to Eden and placed a cherubim there with it. And I was thinking about this flaming sword. If you think about a flaming sword stuck in the ground,
Like a torch.
it would look like a big giant burning cross, right?
Yeah.
The sword
Mm.
inevitably
Mhm.
looks like a cross.
Yeah.
True.
With its hilt and handle. So he
Mhm.
put a flaming cross to guard the Garden of Eden. Now there's no name for the sword other than the flaming sword that he stuck in it. But interesting that a lot of these fables and tales have a flaming sword in it.
Yeah.
It could be Uriel's flaming sword.
Yeah, oh, there you go.
That's the name that they give later to it.
the
But
the
It kind
when
of
I was,
ties in the flaming bush and the crucifixion and everything. No, go
yeah.
on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, to cross back into the trident too. The trident. When we were going into the
Trinity.
Javanese, well, like the shape, like we're going into the Javanese culture, and you had like those what are they called? Like the 3-pronged handheld tridents, right? Like that they use in like
Mhm.
different martial arts and things. The
Sai.
Yeah.
Asai, yeah, those things are, yeah. So those are kind of forms of the handheld one. But I was like, oh, well, this is kind of like a cross. Like a cross, if you were to take the fire to the cross, that would make those edges turn like that, almost like that watery shape of the flame, how it moves like what, because flame kind of
Mhm.
moves like waves, moves like water.
Flickers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like the talk of like a lantern or torches, and we're talking about Hecate and the torches, and our boy Bird Dog brought up Janice also holding torches, or the key and a sword, all of these kind of being like a motif for higher wisdom, or also at least a place marker, like you were saying, like putting it down in the ground as like a place marker. Like why is that? What do you think about the shape itself? That, like, if it's not burning, is it an open portal that you can go and use, but if it's burning, is it like an unusable portal entrance or something? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just invokes the fear.
Well, when you say like a sword, like a sai, if there was like a long sword like a sai, that would kind of look like a trident, right?
Yeah.
Like a trident. So if you flipped it upside down and stuck it in the ground, that would be like to represent the opposite of what the trident represents, or or if Neptune is the god of the sea and the serpent, and that's what's the serpent in the Garden of Eden given knowledge, and he flips that trident upside down and stabs it into the ground. It's like a warning, or like don't come here anymore.
Does that make the Garden of
Off
Eden
limits.
the ocean?
No.
It's interesting. Code.
I see here that
could be like an
Vajra.
island though, right? Surrounded by water.
Oh,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean that's definitely
In,
potential
in,
island
in the
to
north.
Babylon.
Yeah, and in some of the Norse myths, they show like the Aesir or Asgard as being surrounded by a water like moat, and then the Ouroboros inside of that. So like the snake within inside the garden.
Okay, I want to see some pictures or depictions of that. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring one up.
Well, some of those
It's a pretty famous one.
So I see we got the Vajra here. Vajra.
Yeah, we got the
is
Vajra.
a super cool one. So let's get into this, bro.
Speaking of hurling flames and shooting light, we got the lightning throwing Vajra here, which has other names in Tibetan Buddhism. It's known as the Dojra, I believe. Let's see here. The Dorje. It's the Dorje in Tibetan Buddhism. Now, the Vajra is the most important ritual implement of the Vajrayan Buddhism. In Sanskrit, the word Vajra is defined as something hard or mighty, as in a diamond, and it symbolizes impenetrable, immovable, and indestructible state of knowledge and enlightenment. It's sometimes referred to as the diamond pounder of Indra, the mountain god. Our knowledge of the Vajra goes back deep into antiquity. Texts indicate that the Vajra was not always a symbol of peace and tranquility, but something very different. It first appears in ancient India, where it was the primary weapon of the Vedic sky god Indra, the king of the Devas. According to Hindu Puranas, the evil Asuras, Namuchi and Vitra, removed all of the light and moisture from the earth. It made the land inhospitable to living beings. Indra battled the demon gods unsuccessfully, and at last resort called upon the supreme god Vishnu for help. The weapon of the gods. Vishnu informed him that only a weapon that was neither solid nor liquid could kill Namuchi and Vritra. Vishnu had the divine carpenter Tvashta fashion Indra a marvelous weapon he could use to vanquish the dreadful Asuras. The new weapon, the Vajra, emitted thunderbolts. With it, Indra annihilated Namuchi and Vritra and returned the much-needed light and moisture back to the earth. The Rig Veda describes this conflict as thus. Now I describe the glorious deeds of Indra, who holds Vajra. He killed the serpent and made waters flow. He broke the hearts of mountains. He killed the serpent, which was taking refuge in mountain. Tvashta made the Vajra for him, like the cow making sounds. Flowing waters reached the sea. Mighty Vajra chose Soma and drank from 3 containers. Generous Indra held Vajra in his hand, and firstborn was killed among the serpents. Rig Veda 132. The Vajra, when used, was thrown at one's opponent. Nitin Kumar, in his article Ritual Implements of Tibetan Buddhism, tells us, as a hurled weapon, the indestructible thunderbolt blazed like a meteoric fireball across the heavens in a maelstrom of thunder, fire, and lightning. And here we have a picture of the Vajra. In this image, it's a closed Vajra, which can be used as a healing implement, but usually when it's open-ended, it's used to hurl lightning bolts, traditionally. From destructive weapon to peace scepter. Traditional images of the Vajra depict it as a metal shaft with 3, 5, or 9 prongs that emanate from the lotus blossoms on either end, sometimes with 3 resembling the trident, a double-sided trident, however. Originally, according to the ancient Indian text Rig Veda, when Indra used his Vajra, it had open prongs. Buddhist legend suggests that the Shakyamuni, the Buddha himself, took the Vajra from Indra and forced the prongs closed, thus transforming it from a destructive weapon to a peaceful scepter. And here we have an image of it with open ends, four-sided.
Hmm.
I wonder, is there any videos of it like retracting open and closed? That would be so fucking
That would be cool. I'm sure we could find one.
Wow. I'm gonna look
I'll
that
see
I
up.
wonder if there's like
Yeah.
a button that unlocks it and it swings open on hinges so that it can operate, but there's like a safety so it like closes it up, you know what I
Yeah, or like when it heats up, it might get soft enough to just bend
mean? Yeah.
because it's got to carry a lot of power. It looks like it's made from copper, bronze, something like that. Probably not brass. The lightning weapon across cultures. Scholars contend that there is no relationship between Indian, Greek, Australian, and Norse mythology, nor the cosmology of the Americas. They believe that each civilization conceived of their gods independently and that a deeper, older, universal tradition does not exist. If this were the case, then foundation of these societies, their myths, traditions, beliefs, and iconology should be unique to them, their local and their location and their history. The tales of war, intrigue, and conquest that came out of American history are vastly different from those of England, France, India, and China. So too are the customs, traditions, and symbols that represent the nation. When we look at a wide range of ancient and indigenous groups of pattern of commonality exists and starts to come forth. The myth of symbols found in India readily appear in the oral and written descriptions of other cultures. They also appear in the artistic images. These representations seem to transcend time and location. The symbol of thunder or a thunderbolt as a tool of destruction, for example, surfaces in many civilizations. Mythology unfailingly associates lightning with the sky god and the god of thunder, who uses it as a weapon, which kind of ties in with Zeus and Thor. And there's definitely some Native American legends of thunderbolts and lightning bolts coming from the heavens, from the divine, from nature. Kind of a punishing act.
Yes, yes. Dude, is there more we going on this?
Yeah, they're going to go into a little something on Zeus here. You got anything else to add before I go on?
No, let's slide into it.
All right, let's do this. In the Western world,
I got
the thunderbolt. Oh, go ahead, Dan. You got something?
well I just have I have that image pulled up of the thing that I want. I'll do it when you're
Cool.
done though. I'll do it when you're done because it goes into some of the stuff that LC King is saying in the chat too. So
Solid. All right, we'll get to that in a minute. This is just getting to the end here. In the Western world, the thunderbolt is most readily associated with the Greek sky god Zeus. With it, he defeated the Titans and took control of the Greek pantheon. Myth tells us that Zeus freed the Cyclopes, master builders, who were imprisoned in the depths of the underworld, Tartarus. In gratitude for their release, they gave him the marvelous weapon, the thunderbolt. In another story, Zeus used his formidable weapon to battle the largest and most fearsome creatures in all of Greek mythology, the 100-headed serpent Typhon. Early images of Zeus show him holding a rod like thunderbolt, while others show his deadly weapon with its end splayed into 3 prongs, like the image over here on the right. The Vajra of the Sumerians. The Vajra-like weapon also appears in Sumerian cosmology. It's used and recorded in the Babylonian epic of creation, Enuma Elish. A battle between the sky god Marduk, or Baal, and the serpent Tiamat is detailed on the 4th tablet of this ancient document. The evil and powerful Tiamat, according to the Enuma Elish, was devising treacherous plans against Ea, or Enki, and other reigning gods. Of course, Tiamat having been demonized as the patriarchy took over with Marduk, but she represented the creator of all the gods and was the golden matriarch and creatrix goddess. The gods were afraid to invoke her evil wrath and search for a solution. Ea, or Enki, attempted to confront Tiamat, but instead of fighting, backed down. Marduk, his son, however, stepped forward and volunteered to fight the enraged serpent on one condition. If he were successful, he would have dominion over the entire universe. And of course, they wanted to overtake the matriarchy, and I think they, were getting a little out of hand trying to promise him all these promises of being the ruler of the universe, but I think he kind of got tricked in this situation, which did not play out well for him.
Well, it's I definitely agree with you on the on this like story being the takeover of the matriarchy to the patriarchal society that we have, because when you look at just the earlier stories of the matriarch, that's where the Holy Trinity originated from, right? The triple goddess and stuff. And it's interesting because talking about the Vajra and it having all of these like super electrical properties and like the ability to wield electricity, it goes into the concept of like, the Trinity of the battery, like how you are able to legitimately put these things together and using that mercurial fluid in between and having those mineral components. I think that there's a potential that this is like the history of electricity in a sense of like that we've known about electricity for so long.
You got your positive and negative and your ground.
Exactly. And yeah, man, that's super cool. I love this so much because that I started on some research work like quite some time ago called the antiquated transhumanism, like going into the scepter, the globus cruciger, and the crown of the royal families and how they were used as like, potential conscious boosters and like elevating the toroidal field of the consciousness and things. And the more I dig into these stories, it's shows that it's a homage to these ancient mysteries that they were able to tap into some sort of like etherical force. Or at one point there were, I think this big battle, there was a lot of the information about like what was being highly revered at the higher echelons of the matriarchal society as it was getting taken over. Like it's a classic, like, Atlanteans destroying the Lemurians kind of vibe going on.
Absolutely.
And yeah, they're using all this power, using all these secrets of like how to harness electricity, and it's their technology, but it's like also at the same time the downfall of their culture. And maybe that's another reason why it was lost for so damn long, is because during the downfall of Atlantis and what have you, maybe they literally lost a lot of it and had to, maybe they changed the way that the earth was, I think they might have been able to inflict weather, like, and maybe had more mud floods happen at places and certain things like that. And anyways, I digress. It's super fascinating though, boys.
That's interesting. I imagine they might have had some kind of like a weapon or some kind of a crystal that might have altered the weather, kind of like Moses drew water from the rock and it created floods, something like that, which is why they were destroyed and their entire island was flooded, because they had technology. They were letting it get out of hand, and they very well likely had something like just like that, like you said.
Yeah, and like that story too of like, battling the serpent of the mountains, and it flooded and the waters flowed from the mountains to the sea. It sounds like, in our dragon talk that we did not too long ago, we talked about the dragon being revered as like a weather monster. So being able to control or harness the dragon and
the ocean.
It's
the ocean.
Dragon or serpent.
So that's
after Tiamat's destroyed, they say that mountains are formed by her rib cage, and other aspects of the land are formed by her body. But they sometimes mention that Enlil was actually the one to have battled her, and I think it might have been Enlil that gave Marduk the net and the bow and the mace. But what were you going to say, Dan?
Oh yeah. This image right here that's up right now
Yeah.
is like the Nurse Yggdrasil tree, and Elsie King. Damn, fucking microphone, man. Elsie
It's
King
fine.
commented earlier that the Phoenicians, the phoenix bird above the world tree, right, is yeah, and then likewise that comment that Roman just posted right there. So the phoenix is the bird above the world tree. And LC says the stone is the cube, the Kabbalah, the Amphalos stone, which is at the navel of the world. The sword seems to be another reference to the word world pillar. Now, if this is Asgard in the north, and you have Mount Meru, which is the stone, and the sword is in the stone, then you have the tree coming from the pillar. And if the phoenix is above the world tree, that symbolizes the flaming sword of fire that's guarding Eden, and the fire coming up, creating like the torrential energy or torrential field of the rising from the ashes, and it's renewing itself through this world tree process, coming back up and out the top. So the idea of the flaming sword could represent the phoenix.
I love that. Definitely a big connection there because he's got the flaming tail, and
Yeah.
you know it's like it's battling against the old fallen ways that being burnt to the ground.
And the way that the fire flame, or the way that flame moves, is like kind of like a flapping of wings. You know, you can
Yeah,
kind of like see the way it like kind of shifts and shakes up, almost like a bird like trying to descend up.
absolutely.
Mhm.
And there's actually a big connection between the dragon and the tree of life, and as well as a rock. A lot of times, the goddesses and creatrix matriarchs are mistranslated intentionally by the patriarchal history
Mm-hmm.
to be the tree of life or the rock foundation or a dragon or serpent. So Tiamat's referred to as a dragon in this story, and it's thought that her name is then transferred to become the Leviathan in the biblical story,
Mm-hmm.
and the behemoth being her husband.
Yeah, then if you look here too, it also has the serpent in the water, the Ouroboros, right?
Yep.
So the serpent is already in the Garden of Eden, with
And
the four
probably is a
rivers
good,
coming out, and
yeah,
Mount Meru.
coming from the island.
Uh,
And there's
and this is
probably,
also all just a mirror of what's happening in the heavens. If you
yes.
get into like
And she's the goddess of
Aquarius and
the
stuff,
Anunnaki, those who came from the
which
heaven and earth.
Morgan and I will be getting into in our podcast, the 88, where we go over the 88 constellations. We're going to be doing Aquarius
Love
in
that.
the first episode, and a lot of this stuff is all in Aquarius, Pegasus Square, and all of these things
I gotta
are
check that
also
out. My
represented
girlfriend's
in the heavens.
Aquarius. Her parents are all Aquariuses. Her daughter's an Aquarius. My son's an Aquarius.
Oh
Oh,
wow!
Aquarius is all around me.
well, I've dated a lot of Aquarians, and I'll tell you what. Oi, 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 oi.
There's also a constellation called Apis, which is the bird of paradise.
Okay.
Lapis lazuli.
Yeah. So it's all very interesting. It's all in the sky as well. Uh, Earth, because it's water, is a mirror image of the heavens. It's the portal.
I think Apis is also the name of the golden bull from Egypt.
Yeah, the Apis
Oh,
There's
bull.
okay.
definitely a connection between the bird and the bull, because like the auroch became the Moloch, the horned bull became the horned owl.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, oh no, it's not a bull. So you have a griffin, right, which is like a bird and a lion, but is there stories of this like lion and bear crossover? I think I was on a podcast with Rural Black the other day on
Yeah.
you guys can go check out on
Check that out.
Patreon.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of goes into, the
There it
cross
goes.
correlation of the bear and the bull. So I'm wondering if there's like a feathered bowl or yeah, it's super interesting. I found another awesome site with the Vajra. There's like more of these Vajras. Look at this
The
one.
feathered
Like this thing.
bull is like the plume serpent, also having to do with Taurus. The plumes is the Taurus field, like the phoenix plumes that come out of its
Oh,
tail.
uh-huh. Oh, I like that. So this Vajra here, you guys, what do you guys get? What kind of vibe you guys get from this?
Kind of like a Rosicrucian cross or something, like,
Uh-huh.
right?
Little Templar cross,
Templar cross.
little fleur de lis,
Yep.
and this is like one of the a more like energetic Vajra, not necessarily like a weapon specifically, but also said to have, the ability to pull like electricity out of the sky.
Oh yeah.
But just to go back onto what we were talking about earlier with like the bismuth connection to Baphomet um and like wielding minerals and stuff. And so you got I don't know what god this is from, like Shiva, but what have you
Trinity.
like the Trinity here. And it's like this is
Yeah.
like what Baphomet is in like a Western. Baphomet is like a more westernized version of this ancient Hindu depiction, right? You have the as above, so below. You have the same cross here, the cross legs, and then you have like this what looks like a triple head. But if it's Shiva that symbolized as a bowl in the bowl of bowls, then it would have a horned head too. And like this like triple face that Baphomet often depicted with like the triple face. And yeah, so it's like there's something connected to the Templar cross and the Baphomet worship of these like occult practices and stuff, and the ancient Hindu stories and the matriarchal patriarchal takeover.
Yeah, in this article I was looking at, they actually go into some Norse stuff after this Sumerian thing. Want to go on with the Vajra, or we could switch it up. What do you guys want to do?
Well, I was gonna say we wrap at 2 hours because we actually have another show with one of our buddies later. So whatever you guys want to do for the next like 20 minutes.
I was just gonna go through a list of some magical weapons.
Yes.
Just real quick, little short stories, little short ones that don't need a whole lot of explaining, just to show how many different magical weapons that there are. There's the Sharur, which is the enchanted talking mace of Ninurta, the Sumerian god. The Sharur means smasher of thousands. It's the weapon and symbol of god Ninurta. The Sumerian mythic sources describe it as an enchanted talking mace. It has been suggested as a possible precursor for similar objects in other mythologies, such as the Arthurian lore.
How do you spell Ashur?
Sharur. Sharur. Oh, which is also got that Shah in it, right? So that's the sun, that's the light. Sharur.
Yeah.
That I was talking about before, the Shah. And then we have the Thunderbolt wielded by Zeus, which we talked about with the Vajra. It's kind of the same thing. It's often shown depicting holding that Vajra. We have Carnwinin, which is King Arthur's dagger. Carnwinin is I don't like it. There's a bunch in Chinese folklore. The Ru Yi Jing Gu Bang. It's a magical staff wielded by the Monkey King, son Wukong, in the Chinese classical novel. The Green Dragon Crescent Blade, exceptionally heavy Guandao, wielded by Guan Yu in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, forged with the blood of the Green Dragon. Guanjing, and Mo Yi, legendary Chinese twin swords named after their creators. The Indian mythology has an arrow of Brahma, the arrow given by the sage Agastya to Rama, the seventh avatar of Vishnu, and was used to kill Ravana. Asi, a legendary divine lotus sword created in ancient times as the first weapon to destroy the enemies of the gods and restore Dharma. Astra, the
You said
divine
Saint
celestial
Saint
weapons with
Augustine.
devastating impacts, which could be invoked by reciting mantras and forming hand signs. Say that again.
Was that? Did you say Sage Augustus? Saint, or was
The
it Saint
sage
Augustine?
Agastya,
August.
Agastya,
Oh, okay.
Agastya.
I got you.
Well,
Haha, I
Agastya,
got you.
yeah.
Missed you.
He is a noted recluse and an influential scholar in diverse languages of the Indian subcontinent. He and his wife, Lopamuja, are the celebrated authors of hymns 165 to 1.191 in the Sanskrit text Rig Veda. There's like a whole bunch of Indian maces, weapons. The mace of Bhima, a club that was presented to Mayasura. It was a weapon of the Danavas, King Vishaparva. The Danavas, the weapon of the Danavas. The Danavas are a race descending from Kashyapa and his wife Danu, a daughter of the progenitor god Daksha. It is mentioned that there are 100 Danavas, and so these Danavas also are in Vedic mythology. It's the tribe of Dan, basically.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Queen Anne.
There's a shark.
You have any screen you can
Sharka?
share so we can see what you're seeing here, bud?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess.
Wow.
I guess. Hold on. Let me
Can you share the
present
juice?
here. Yeah.
I just want a little sip.
I'm going. Let me.
I got a couple other swords of stuff we could talk about while you're
Yeah.
looking at that. We got
Yeah, go
the
for it.
Durandal, the sword of Roland. It was one of Charlemagne's paladins. Roland was a Frankish military leader under Charlemagne. Had an enchanted sword. We have the Skofnung, legendary sword of the Danish king Hrolf Kraki, renowned for supernatural sharpness and hardness. Okay, go on with what you got here.
Trishula, which we covered, Vajra, which we covered. In Islamic mythology, there's a Zulfiqar, a sword belonging to Ali ibn Abi Talib. This sword is Middle Eastern weapon, are commonly inscribed with a quote meaning Zulfiqar, and Middle Eastern swords are at times made with a split tip in reference to the weapon. So this is that like pirate sword kind of thing,
Yeah.
with a split, with a forked tongue, the serpent sword. We were talking earlier how words and swords have reference to each other. So this is a split tongue sword. I'm looking for what this actually does. I don't see interpretations of the sword's names as found in Islamic theological writings or popular piety fall in four categories: reference to the stars of the belt of Orion, emphasizing the celestial provenance of the sword, or interpretation of fuqar as an unfamiliar plural of fuqra, notch, groove, indentation, interpreted as a reference to a kind of decoration of regularly spaced notches or depths on the sword, or a reference to a notch formed by the sword's supposed termination in 2 points, or a reference to the literal vertebrae of the spine, yielding an interpretation to the sense of the severer of the vertebrae, the spine splitter. So that's an interesting one. In Irish mythology, there's a crap ton. The Fraggle Rock, the sword of the god of the seas of Manaman Machlir, and later Lugh in Irish legend. It was said to be a weapon that no armor could stop. The Caled Bog, two-handed sword of Fergus Macroch, in Irish legend, said to make a circle like an arc of a rainbow when swung, and to have the power to cleave the tops of the hills. I think you
Yeah,
mentioned
can
that
chop
one. Yeah,
off 3 trees tops too.
yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
The Gade Bulg, a spear of Cuchulainn, made from the bones of a sea monster. Cuchulainn also sounds like Kukulkan. But Gay Bulg is meaning spear or of mortal pain and death. A gapped notch spear or belly spear was the name of the spear of the Cuchulainn in the Ulster cycle of Irish mythology. It was given to him by his martial arts teacher, the warrior woman Scatahach, and its technique was taught only to him. It was made from the bone of a sea monster, the Cureid, that had died while fighting another sea monster, the Coinchen. Although some sources make it out to be simply a particularly deadly spear, others, notably the Book of Leinster, state that it could only be used under very specialized ritual conditions. So that's another one. There's a bunch in Japanese folklore. The Ami no Nuhoko, which is a Japanese halberd which formed the first island. That's pretty interesting. Kusanagi, the legendary Japanese sword, can also be considered as Kusanagi no Tsurugi.
That sword was recovered from the corpse of the Orochi serpent. And it's said to represent the divine right of the Japanese royal family to rule the Japanese archipelago. Susanoo, the storm god, gifted this ceremonial component of the Japanese imperial regalia to his sister, Amaterasu, the sun goddess, as a gesture of reconciliation after having falling out with her. The Kusanagi was later given to a warrior prince, Yamato Takeru, legendary ancestor of the Japanese emperors, acknowledging the divine lineage of the Japanese royal lineage. He was said to have hid in the grass field and used it to swipe away large swaths of grass and redirect the wildfire back at his enemies. It was also said to be capable of controlling the winds and sturdy enough to chip even the personal armor of Susanoo, the storm god. Some people believe it still exists today and is kept in the shrine of Nagoya, but others believe it was lost at sea in a battle.
Yeah. Do you have any? Do you have any more? I got
Yeah.
a bunch more, but go for it, man.
I was mentioning earlier that the Skofnung, legendary sword of the Danish king Hrolf Kraki, is imbued with the spirits of the king's 12 berserker bodyguards, and a cut made from the Skofnung will not heal unless it is touched by the Skofnung stone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
it also sounds like the King Arthur sword in the stone, the 12 Knights of the Round Table. Yeah,
absolutely. And the Fraggle that you mentioned earlier is said to have been forged. Yeah, it's said to have been forged by the gods themselves, and they said that no armor could stop it, and it gave the user control of the winds, kind of like the Kusanagi was also said to have. Stories of the sword lay claim that the force of truth could be taken out of whomever's throat it was on. So we can get a lot of information with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's do 2 more a pop, and then we'll wrap them. Sounds
good. All right, we got the Redil, the sword of the dwarf Regan. The legendary sword is having cut out Fafnir's heart. We mentioned that earlier. It's also probably another name of the grammar. But then we have the sword Cladinets, the fabulous magical sword of some old Slavic and Russian legends and fairy tales. It's said to be a huge sword, probably a two-handed sword. And then that's 2 for me.
Mjolnir, the hammer of Thor. It was invulnerable, and when thrown, it would return to the user's hand. Freyr's sword, a magic sword which fought on its own. It might be a Levitian sword. Forseti's axe, a golden battle axe that Forseti used to save the old sages and the wreck, and then threw the axe to an island to bring forth a source of water. I want to end it here with this comment that Nomad posted. Piercing, even, damn it, fucking microphone, man. Piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit and of the joints of and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. And that's from Hebrews 4:12 from the KJV.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention quickly that Thor's mighty Mjolnir was only able to be used by Thor because he had the Jarn Griepner mighty gloves that allowed him to wield the Mjolnir. I remember said to have heard lightning.
Oh, it was the gloves, huh? It's all in
Yeah,
it's all in the
it
hand.
was supposed to be
It's
a
all on the
larger.
wrist.
It was supposed to have a larger handle, but Loki was overseeing it, and his intercession kind of screwed them up, and they broke off part of the hammer, so it was a lot shorter. So he needed these gloves to be able to handle it, because you need a better, longer handle on a large axe or hammer to be able to swing it. I didn't have that.
Oh, true.
Yeah, but Loki had some
Awesome.
dwarves build that for him.
Yeah,
I need me some
excellent.
dwarves, man.
And then on the next episode, hold up, fucking microphone. On the next episode of Rising
Dan
from
gets
the
a new
Ashes,
mic.
Yeah. We'll be getting into mythical treasures, lost treasures.
Oh, yeah.
I do want to talk about Oak Island because I know that's controversial. Some people think it's baloney, other people think it's true. So let's get into the treasures of Oak Island. What could possibly be there? Also, we could get into many other treasures. El Dorado, the lost city of El Dorado, is not really considered necessarily a treasure, but definitely a prized place where people go to seek treasure. So that could be interesting to get into. There's many, like, I want to get into a little bit of why dragons guard gold.
Yeah.
Maybe we can find something about figure something out of why that is. I know we probably talked about it in the dragon episode, but I always find that fascinating that dragons are always guarding gems and gold and stuff like that.
Yeah, I got some juice on that. I'm down. It's gonna be fun. All right. Well, you boys got any more final statements before we sign off into the ether? And I want to just give everybody a warm shout out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope this was an insightful episode for you guys, and got some takeaways from today.
Yeah. You guys can check me out. Indie Sage on Facebook or vibetribescribe.wordpress.com to check out my blog. More articles coming soon on there all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to say, check out Rising from the Ashes, of course, everywhere podcasts are. And then also, I'm doing a little solo project. Fuck, damn microphone. I'm doing a little solo project podcast called Portals of Dan. That's out on Spotify now. If people want to go check that out. I got a show with Indy. It's called The Serpent and the Sage. Episode 2 of that came out on Saturday. We got into long heads and giants, and that's also on video, so you can check out the video of that on Spotify. And then I do a show called Ebbs and Flows, and that's with Nomad and Joshua the Branch and my girlfriend, the Morgan B. and we go over the book of Genesis and try to take out all the different esoteric ideas from it, try to make sense of the scripture, and have a good time. And it's great to have conversations with people who are very into it and people on the outside of it, and try to culminate ideas together of sorting through what's going on there. And then also there's going to be a third show called the 88, which is a show that Morgan and I are going to be doing about all the constellations, the 88 constellations, technically 89, but one of them is left out, and we'll be getting into that one as well. So go check out the Portals of Dan on Spotify, and if you want to hear the episodes early, check out the Patreon of Rising from the Ashes, where you'll get all of those a month earlier at least, and you'll be getting a bunch of great shows from Roman and what he's doing on there as well. So go check out Patreon.
Rick,
Roman, do you have anything else to add to that, buddy?
Yeah, keep an eye out for a new episode of Moon Mysteries coming out this week with Kaylee Burkana, an astrologist. Great show, great chat, diving deeper into some of the moon mysteries associated with the ancient matriarchal societies and the dark goddesses and things. So
It's gonna be
Cool.
fun.
Yeah.
And
That's on
yeah,
Podbean.
yeah, it's Podbean, Spotify. It should be anywhere where the pod's at, except we're not on
Yeah, it
Apple
should be.
yet. It's sad.
Oh, you're not? Oh,
No,
okay. Apple's
so
such a bitch.
I know you got to really, Well, okay, hey, Solomon's apple. Let's get into that. I'm just kidding.
Solomon's apple.
Yeah, that is a
Yeah.
thing, but let's not get into that
The
because.
Shamir's in that apple.
Oh yeah, the apple and the worm, right?
It's the worm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh,
there we go.
shit.
All right, bless up, everybody.
Indy. That's what's up.
Cool.
Thank you all for tuning in.
Cheers.
And if you're not done with that,